Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Revelation chapter 9, verse 12, which is a precept I've been using quite a lot lately because we are living in these times. One woe or destruction is past, referring to World War I, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter, World War II, which is past, and World War III, which is quickly coming upon us, and it will go nuclear. World War III and nuclear destruction are all a part of biblical prophecy. This is 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 10. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise. And in the scriptures, heavens and hell can be symbolic for a condition. Heavens when you're in rulership, and hell when you're in captivity, which is exactly where the children of Israel are at. The true children of Israel consisting of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, perpetual second-class citizenship under the heavens of these heathens, chiefly the biblical Edomites or so-called white people. But once these nukes start flying, that's going to be the end of their heavens and the beginning of their hell. In the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. And it's going to be nuclear fire that's going to melt the elements and, the works in the earth up with fervent heat. This is Joel chapter 2. I'm going to start at verse 1. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain, which is exactly what the men of the Lord, the prophets of the Most High, are doing. Going out onto the highways and byways preaching this word, as well as putting up video epistles like this, letting you know what times you're in and what's to come. And at this point, if the spirit of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai is dealing with you, you can clearly see that Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai is dealing with GMS or Great Millstone, as well as the brothers that come in the spirit of GMS. Everything that our apostles and elders on down to the youngest men have been saying, is coming to pass right before our very eyes. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of Yahweh cometh, for it is nigh at hand, like a thief in the night. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong. Speaking of those nuclear weapons, there had not been ever the like, because they came about very recently, beginning with those 2 atomic bombs dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima during the Second Woe, World War II. Neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations, because at that point in World War III, when these nations go to shoot their nukes, every single one is going to be fired. And after the dust settles, Yahweh Shai, the Son of the Most High, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus, along with the 144,000 of the elect who are going to have spiritual powers. Imagine 144,000 supermen in that day. They're going to go and round up, the survivors of these heathens, beginning with these elites in their underground bunkers and, other hideout places, and slap chains on them so they can begin serving that first 1,000 years of the kingdom of heaven, building it up. And, Abaratazah, I'm of that number. Hey, we're not going to allow you to build weapons of war anymore. Verse 3, a fire devoureth before them, that warhead at the front of the missile where the business end is, and behind them a flame burneth, the rocket booster on the back of the missile. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them. You have cities and forests and parks and people going about their wicked daily lives, and behind them a desolate wilderness. Yeah, and nothing shall escape them. When those nukes hit their targets, it's going to be like Fallout or Mad Max. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. Like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. And this is the prophet Joel describing the missiles the best way he could, because back in the ancient world, they didn't have, hypersonic missiles, Patriot missiles, the Satan II, the Zircon, or anything like that. All they had was bows and arrows, spears, javelins, horses and horsemen. So they had to describe it, with the weapons of war during their times. It's all parabolic. Verse 6, I'm going to reread the last bit of verse 5. Like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, melting the elements with fervent heat and burning up the works in the earth, as a strong people set in battle array. Verse 6, before their face the people shall be much pained, all faces shall gather blackness, ash, soot. These people getting burnt up by these nuclear missiles. This is Zechariah chapter 14, verse 12. And this shall be the plague wherewith Yahweh will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. And Jerusalem is a people before it's a place. So it's speaking about the judgment for you heathens, chiefly you Edomites in America that have afflicted the children of Israel. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. And this isn't talking about a bad case of gangrene. This is talking about these people getting burned up by that nuclear missile. All faces shall gather blackness. And, a perfect visualization of this, which the spirit of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai put it on James Cameron to create this effect, was that scene in Terminator 2 when Sarah Connor had a vision of nuclear destruction, which I got a gif of it right there. Their eyes shall consume away out of their sockets, their tongues out of their mouth, and their skin shall consume away off their flesh. And I opened up the video with these verses to preface a video from Canadian Prepper's YouTube channel titled Alert, NATO Highest Threat Level, Nuclear Doctrines, F-16s Start World War III, that third woe, biggest attack, next 24 hours. And I'm going to start the video at about the 7-minute and 33-second mark, where the Canadian Prepper is going to speak of the possibility of nuclear war and how Russia is changing its posture more and more to lower its threshold to use nuclear weapons. But it seems a little
this
bit
is
of
the
an
guy
issue.
who
All right. Scoot it up a little bit. And this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes.
This is how they view things. Now, in terms of the other news, on RT, Russia Today, there was a very telling story that's showing you how the mood is shifting inside Moscow. There was a guy, Karaganov, I'm not sure what his first name was, but I've read several of his articles, and this is the guy who is pushing for Russia to do some demonstrative nuclear strike, insisting that they need to lower the nuclear threshold for the West to take them seriously. Now, somebody who has been in opposition.
The West, mainly meaning the United States, and the two main combatants during World War III is going to be the United States of America and Russia, all a part of biblical prophecy.
To this individual has written another article. It was on the front page of Russia Today. You're going to have to forgive me, guys. My head is full of mucus, and I'm just trying to do my best to get through this. Dmitry Trenin, who is a research professor at the Higher School of Economics and a member of the Russian Internal Affairs Council, basically is arguing that Russia needs to lower its nuclear threshold, and it needs to do something before it's too late. Because,
and if you've noticed over the last, 5-6+ years, what have we been seeing? Russia and the U.S. taking themselves out of those Cold War era nuclear weapons treaties and bans, and more and more talk in the mainstream news and threats of World War III of nuclear weapons being used, because we are living in these times of these biblical prophecies coming to their fulfillment.
The reality of the West's goal of a strategic defeat of Russia, of course, is in defiance of the whole purpose of having a nuclear deterrent, having what's called strategic stability, which is usually understood as the absence of incentives for a nuclear-armed power to launch a massive first strike. And if you think that we have the capability to get into a nuclear war with Russia, I would encourage you to go and listen to podcasts with Lex Friedman's most recent guest, Annie Jacobson, I believe her name is. She's writing a book, or she wrote a book, but it's not quite released yet, called Nuclear War. And it details from start to finish what the U.S. capabilities are, and they are paltry at best. One of the most terrifying figures that came out of that interview that I wasn't aware of is that we only have 44 interceptor missiles.
44. You know how significant that number is, and who knows whether that's the real number or not. But at the end of the day, you know, Russia is going to prevail against the U.S. in nuclear war.
Now, I knew that we had an anti-ballistic missile disparity with the Russians. Peter Vincent Pry, former CIA, the late Peter Vincent Pry, broke that all down on the channel at the beginning of the war. But I never knew it was that bad. And then, of course, the idea that any of these missiles are going to be successful in actually taking out a ICBM that is traveling over 20,000 miles an hour is a long shot in itself. And of course, there's going to be thousands of those potentially heading our way.
And that's part of biblical prophecy as well. Back in Jeremiah chapter 2, Joel chapter 2, verse 7, they shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the wall like men of war, and they shall march everyone on his ways, and they shall not break their ranks. The spirit of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is going to be on those missiles, guiding them to their targets without any problems. Neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk everyone in his path, and when they shall fall upon the sword, and that's talking about these anti-missile defense systems, they shall not be wounded. Hey, a lot of these missiles are going to get past those things and hit their targets without any problems. And what the Canadian prepper just say, you know, I doubt that a lot of these anti-ballistic missile systems that the U.S. has would be able to stop, you know, Russia's missiles. And then at the same time, the spirit of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is going to be on those anti-missile defense systems to fail as well. And, you know, there's been plenty of declassified documents coming out where the U.S. military has said that in the past, you know, there have been sightings of so-called UFOs, which are really the chariots of the Most High, over U.S. nuclear weapons facilities, and they just turned on, you know, the launch sequence and then turned it off. Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is in complete control of this movie called Life, and it's all to fulfill his will.
So the idea that we're ready to fight a nuclear war, don't bet on it. They got bunkers and they got planes to take them down to the southern hemisphere, but that's about it. Now, so what they're calling this in Russia then, this is the thinking in Russia, because this is front page Russia Today. This does not, you would not see, you'll never see a Karaganov article on the front page of Russia Today in the past. If you did, it would be coupled with some sort of criticism, okay? It would be it would be an article critiquing. Karaganov is the guy who has been promoting this idea of lowering the nuclear threshold, using nukes in an attempt to escalate, to de-escalate. What that means is that you use a nuclear weapon in the hopes that NATO starts to come back to reality and back off, and you show them you mean business. Up until now, that sort of thing never got any platform on any of the major Russian news websites, with the exception of maybe RIA Novosti, which is kind of more of the op-ed type. But for Russia Today to say this means that the oligarchs within Russia and the leadership class are actually thinking about it, okay?
Also a part of biblical prophecy, those Russian Edomites getting put back into that old Soviet Union Cold War spirit. This is Ezekiel chapter 38. I'm going to start at verse 1. And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, one of the biblical names for Russia in the scriptures, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, Russia, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, turn thee back into that old confrontational Soviet Union building up our nuclear arsenal, hey, mad, mutually assured destruction spirit, and I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. You know, that's talking about their military arsenal, tanks, fighter jets, helicopters, S-300, S-400, missile defense systems, artillery pieces, etc., etc. And, you know, them being gathered down into that Middle Eastern region, really Western Asia, into the Valley of Jehoshaphat for the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat in the main part of World War III in Joel chapter 3. But again, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, them getting put back into that old confrontational nuclear Soviet Union spirit. Hence why, you know, the calls for Russia to lower their threshold for using nuclear weapons are becoming louder and louder within Russia.
So they're saying that as a result of the failure of strategic deterrence, so they view what's happening now with NATO continuing to up the ante, continuing to enable Ukraine to target day after day oil refineries, you know, military bases, places of interest in the capitals, you know, the ability of NATO to enable the Ukrainians to target deep inside Russia proper is a sign that their strategic nuclear deterrence posture as it stands today has failed. This is very important.
Kayak compares both rental car and car sharing sites to help you save money. Download the Kayak app now.
It should be noted that the main cause of the conflict is Washington's conscious disregard of Moscow's clearly and explicitly expressed security interests. He goes on to say the mission of using its proxy to inflict a strategic military defeat on Russia is evidence of this. In other words, the U.S. is trying to defeat Russia not only without the use of nuclear weapons, but even without formally engaging in hostilities, but nonetheless is trying to defeat a nuclear power. The adversary should not remain in a state of comfort, believing that the war he is waging with the help of another country will not affect him in any way. In other words, it is necessary to put fear...
that he shall not remain in a state of comfort. You know, these Americans are delusional. They have that normalcy bias, a normalcy Norman, like Canadian Prepper likes to go into, where they'll say, oh, we've heard of, nuclear war during the Cold War, World War III with our grandparents, all that. It's never going to happen, or it's not going to happen in our lifetimes. Well, you're sadly mistaken. Let's go back to Ezekiel chapter 38. And go down to verse 10. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, it shall come to pass that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought, shooting nukes onto America, and having troops on the streets of America, killing these civilians. Verse 11, and thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates. The United States of America, which we can clearly see this place is, got open borders with this migrant crisis. But the main point, I will go to them that are at rest and that dwell safely. Let's wind that back a little bit.
Remain in a state of comfort, believing that the war engaging in hostilities, but nonetheless is trying to defeat a nuclear power. The adversary should not remain in a state of comfort, believing that the war he is waging with the help of another country will not
go to them that are careless and dwelleth safely, so they think.
Affect him in any way. In other words, it is necessary to put fear back into the minds and hearts of the enemy's leaders, the beneficial sort of fear. It's worth stressing. We simply need to understand and help the enemy to understand that strategic stability in the real, not narrow technical sense of the word is not compatible with armed conflict between nuclear superpowers, even if for the time being it is being waged indirectly. And it is unlikely that the enemy will accept this state of affairs easily and immediately. They don't explicitly go on to state that they need to use nukes or anything like that in that article. But this is a marked shift in the tendency of Russia to be very averse to the notion of changing their nuclear posture at all. This is the first time I've heard on what is the mouthpiece of the Kremlin, Russia Today, talk about it in such terms. So
That's it. With this video, you get the point. But hey, the more and more, mainstream and alternative news we see, hey, the more and more it's lining up with biblical prophecy, because again, we truly are living in these times, the times of World War III, the times of nuclear weapons being used. Like I said throughout the video, the two main combatants are going to be the U.S. and Russia is going to overcome the United States of America. Now I'm going to close it out in Jeremiah chapter 50. I'm going to start at verse 9. For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon, the virgin daughter of Babylon, Babylon the Great, the United States of America, an assembly of great nations from the north country being Russia, because Russia is north of the U.S., and also what's north of the U.S., that Arctic Ocean region, which Russia has been building back up its military capabilities, nuclear included, up there. And it's a well-known fact that Russia shooting missiles across the north, to reach the U.S. is the shortest trajectory time it would take for those missiles to reach the U.S., and that assembly of great nations are not just Russia's allies like China, Iran, or North Korea, but also America's own allies such as Britain, France, Germany, these other NATO nations that are going to turn against the U.S. at some point during World War III to ally themselves with Russia. Revelation 17 verse 16, and the 10 horns, speaking of the EU or European Union, which thou sawest upon the beast, NATO, these shall hate the whore, the United States of America, that rideth upon the beast, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire, nuclear fire. And they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. Those arrows, speaking of those nuclear missiles, and none shall return in vain. Remember what it said back in Joel chapter 2, neither hath there been any like before, nor shall there be any more afterwards to the generations, roughly paraphrasing. But now I'm going to jump down to verse 41. Behold, a people shall come from the north, Russia, and a great nation, and many kings shall be raised up from the coasts of the earth, from the ends of the earth, that assembly of nations under Russia. They shall hold the bow and the lance, those nuclear missiles, as well as their launch platforms and silos, which is what that bow is symbolic for, because you need a bow to shoot the arrows. They are cruel and will not shew mercy. Their voice shall roar like the sea, and they shall ride upon horses, every one put in array like a man to the battle against thee, O daughter of Babylon. Not the Neo-Babylonian Empire, but the virgin daughter of Babylon, the United States of America. And when you go to Psalms 137, verses 7 to 9, you will see that these Edomites are synonymous with being the daughter of Babylon. Now I'm going to jump up to verse 40. As the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah and the neighbor cities thereof, saith Yahweh. And besides being known as the daughter of Babylon in the scriptures, America is also known as spiritual Sodom and Egypt, as pursuant to Revelation 11 verse 8. And it's very easy to see this is the number one nation that pushes that alphabet coalition heavy. And ancient Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed and made uninhabitable with fire and brimstone from the sky. And it's going to be the same with this modern day Sodom and Gomorrah with modern fire and brimstone, 200 million nuclear missiles. So shall no man abide there, neither shall any son of man dwell therein. It's going to be turned into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland afterwards, where man, woman, or child will never set foot on ever again, and after a time only desert creatures will dwell here. Therefore the wild beasts of the desert with the wild beasts of the islands shall dwell there, and the owls shall dwell therein, and it shall be no more inhabited forever, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. And we know this isn't talking about ancient Babylon, which is in modern day Iraq, where you've got people, dwelling there unto this day. But that's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We are clearly almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babol, Kwam Yasharallah, and until next time, Shalom.